reports. Thinking.
You're good.
Is really, it's for the members.
I call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg, the Ottawa, and the Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for November 1st, 2021 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. I have Paul seconding. All in favor? Carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yes, Reeve, thank you very much. I want to just declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest on the bills of accounts, item 5.2.1. There's a check in there, number 507271, that is written out to my spouse, Tiffany Sipe, who's an employee of the municipality and working in the daycare.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, through you, Reed Bailey. Thank you. I got a conflict of interest in regards to 7.3.2 of the agenda in regards to the Blythe Legion. I was the one to put that request in, and I won't be participating in the discussion or the vote.
Thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Seeing none, we shall move on. Public comment. This opportunity is for any member of the public to speak to any item that's on the agenda, 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the agenda of tonight? I see no hands or... Okay, there is one person. There is a mic at the front here, if you can just come up.
Oh, you want me up? Okay.
Yeah. And just give us your name, please. Anything else?
Nope, just name.
Ah. Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
That works.
And sir, if you could just start with your name and then carry on from there.
Yep, sure. My name is Rob Warwick. I'm the tenant of the agricultural lands at the Wingham Airport, the long-term tenant there. Seen on the agenda that we're going to be talking about the Wingham Airport and possibly the sale of the lands. That obviously affects me a lot being a farmer there. Been hearing lots about it. Got caught off guard a couple different times here with the sale of the airport itself, and then now with what's going on with what we're going to talk about with the sale of the agricultural lands. Just talking with a few different people, the Papples, the loggers. I'm just throwing some names right now, but the lady that I talked to that's running the airport lands there that I talked to at council here. Just I've been hearing conflicting stories. I'm kind of just a little bit confused. I'd like some clarity. I'd like to be part of the solution for you guys. I don't want to be part of the problem. I feel when I talk to some people about it that sooner the better. I could be evacuated from the premises, the better. Is kind of the impression I am under. And I just want some clarity. And as I said, I'd like to keep renting the airport property for as long as I can and try and do a good job with that and work with you guys. And I'm just hoping to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And my 2 cents here, so I appreciate the time and thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you very kindly. Is there anyone else in the audience? Not hearing because I can't see too much of the audience. Consent agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent agenda items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2. And further, the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.4 for information purposes. Would anybody like to pull something before I call the vote? Not seeing any. Can I have a mover, please? I have Anita moving. I have Paul seconding. All in favor? Carries. Public meetings and hearings and delegations. The Municipality of South Bruce Nuclear Waste Management Organization update on South Bruce Nuclear Exploration Project. David and Tarki, I hope I said that right. If not, please help me with that so I don't do it again.
I demask now?
You may.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on what's happening in South Bruce with our, the company that we're dealing with, which is represented by Tarek Alzabat, and he's the Director of Site Selection for Southwestern Ontario for Nuclear Waste Management Organization. And as you may well know, that the municipality of South Bruce, many years ago in 2012, put up their hand and said they'd be interested in looking at the possibility of being a host for this project. That study continues, and we continue to explore whether or not it's something we want to do. So we wanted to give you an update, and I'll just go through some of these slides. Just tell you a little bit about how we got here, some of our guiding principles, the willingness study that we've just completed, and some other studies and peer reviews. I'll leave the borehole drilling to Tarek, because his company did that, and I'll talk a little bit about our community liaison committee, and at the end, after Tarek's presentation, we'll do some questions and answers for you. So how did we get here? So as I said, back in 2012, we volunteered to be one of 22 communities that were looked at to participate in this. The 2013, our Community Liaison Committee was established, and they've been working on education of the community since that time. And then we've had some other studies gone on, values and principles in 17-18, and followed by project visioning in 2019 and 20. And then last summer, we've added my team, which is our nuclear exploration project team. And that just after that, we worked on developing some guiding principles. So we had 34 guiding principles. We went to the public, and they asked for 2 more. So we now have 36 guiding principles, and we submitted them to Nuclear Waste Management Organization. Not all of them pertain to that group, but certainly most of them do. And as we go through this process, this is kind of our yardstick that we're going to measure this project, is things that we want to ensure that are done. They focus on the 3 main areas of both health and environmental safety, community benefits, and having a community voice. And we want to make sure that this is the right place, and that the community benefits have to be positive. We know there's going to be negative, but we also want to make sure that there's a net positive, that there's something in it for all the people in South Bruce. So as I said, we've revised the list and sent it on to NWMO. This gives you a quick review of just what's happening. So a lot of processes are going along in parallel. So NWMO is determining which community, and they have 2 left in the process, one in Ignis and Northwest Ontario, and one here in Southwest Ontario in South Bruce. And for those of you who don't know, the location is just north of Teeswater. The borehole drilling and testing got underway this year, and we expect the results to be finished up on that in 23. And at the same time, the environmental baseline studies are going on, and we expect that work is to be also available into 23. So with that, the process that we're going through right now is some socioeconomic studies. I'll detail some of those for you. And then we're also having, one of the major things our people ask for is that we peer review all of the studies that NWMO is doing for us. And so that's quite a bit. There's about 50 studies all told. So you can imagine that's a lot of consultants involved in determining this process. But we want to make sure that the information is looked at through a lens of South Bruce and this community, to make sure that things that are being recommended are what will be good for our community. The other community that's involved in this is the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and they, like us, have the opportunity to step out of this process. So that's really the kind of how this rolls with us, is that anywhere along the line, if we find something that doesn't fit with our community, we have the opportunity to decline participating any further in the process. And same with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. They are also going through a study program and have an agreement to review this with NWMO. So what's happened so far is, I mentioned we've had the visioning workshop and guidance. We identified how to measure willingness. We've just completed a study. It's coming to council November 9th. So next Tuesday, council will be getting a report. We've already taken it to our community liaison committee and to the public. And with that, it will come to council. It is a summary of all of the different things that people have said and how we can measure that. Sneak preview was the number one comment, was asking for a referendum. So that's the number one, but there's actually many different ways that we can measure, and I think that's some of the things. Some of the people want to see us ensure that we are well informed. So they want us to complete our studies, complete the work on the borehole, complete the work on the environment, and especially completing the work on our finances to make sure that the public finances will be better off after, if we were to agree to host this project. So council's next step after reviewing the project is to come up with the actual measurements of how we're going to actually measure that willingness, and then during the next year, 2 years, is actually do the measurement of willingness to make sure that that is what we want. The NWMO would like to have their answer by 23. They're hoping to take that onward in the process in 25 to the impact assessment process. So this is where we started with on the willingness, is that we retained an independent consultant, a company called GHD Limited, and they led us through the process. The communities had the opportunity to express how they wanted it to do. They also were able to determine that confirmation of that what is in the report is what they said. The report itself was maybe 30 pages. The appendix is like over 400 pages, because the appendix is everything that anybody said and everything that they wrote to us. So council has a full documentation of everything that somebody has put in, submitted as information for them. And so it's a very large document, but it's very thorough on what people are looking for. As I said, there's over 50 studies, and they will confirm the safety. They'll address the concerns that were raised by the community, and they're going to inform the community and NWMO of any potential impacts of hosting the project in South Bruce, and that'll give them the opportunity to look at how those impacts may be mitigated. The geoscience work I'm going to leave to Tarek. Said his team has put that together, so we're expecting that South Bruce will have that reviewed by 2023. So the peer reviews process that we're doing is rather unique. It's the first time I've seen it done, and what we're doing is a collaborative peer review. And typically what may happen is you'll say one engineering company will do a study, another engineering company will do the peer review. What we've decided to do is to collaborate on this process. So from the very start, from the statement of work and the work plans that were put together, both consultants are, NWMO's consultants, South Bruce consultants are working together to verify that information, to verify what the study is, the direction it's going, and the types of things they're doing is agreeable to us, and to ensure that looking at it through South Bruce filters, that everything that South Bruce wants to be in a report is actually in the report. So that's the key for us, and we think as we go through this, hopefully review of these information, we'll come out with a reasonably agreeable report, hopefully, that we can look at. There are two separate reports, though. There is a report from both NWMO's consultant as well as a separate report from our consultant. Anything that we've asked to be changed along the way is documented in our peer review report, so it's very transparent for people to know what's going on. So hopefully it all comes out. I did a peer review in a previous life when I was a CAO, and that ended up in a discussion that went on for years and years and years, and happy to report 9 years later it's still not settled. So that's why I was happy to look at this a different way of doing things and trying to get things done in a cooperative manner, so. On a regional basis, your CAO, Mr. Evans, has been involved with us on some initial discussions on some of the studies we're looking at, but we're looking at what the economic development is going to take place not only in South Bruce, but throughout the region, and that's really looks from Huron, Bruce, and Grey counties, and a little bit of Wellington, where County Minto is a little bit of Wellington, and looking at those areas and seeing what that impact is going to be. Our environmental studies, some of them cover a lot of different things, from the way birds fly to the way animals walk to the way fish swim, the water flows, and other things like that. And so most of the water flows north from the site, which takes it away from here. It doesn't come down here. But you know what? The birds fly this direction, especially this time of year. They're coming south, right? So the other things like that do happen. And so on the environmental studies, your area is included. We look at regional health effects and the impact on what this type of growth and could be on, for instance, one of the main things we look to your community for is education and healthcare and commercial uses, all your stores and that sort of thing. You're the closest Tim Hortons to Teeswater. Yeah. And McDonald's now. You've been expanding. So those are very important for our community to look at the health effects, the education, and also I know employment's tight everywhere right now, but we're talking operation or construction-wise, 32, 33 for a start. So we don't know what construction's or what staffing's going to be like at that time. And similarly with housing, we think there'll be a demand regionally for housing. So the studies that we've engaged on have begun in this year in 21. We expect some to be done in these socioeconomic studies will be done in 22, and the peer reviews will be done and work will be ongoing in 22 and 23 with our peer reviews as well. And as we have the reports finished, we'll be making them available to the public, and every person in our community will be getting a highlights of those reports. We won't send them the complete reports, but we will have those available online and probably in our libraries for people to look at. Some of the economic development studies that we're doing are, we've just finished an economic development update for South Bruce. We're looking at a workforce development study. We're looking at housing demand and our own local economic development. So we looked at our community with and without the project. So kind of where would we be without this project and where it is, so that people will understand that, that we suspect there should be a positive difference. And agricultural economic effects, we want to see what happens. That's a major industry for us, and it's certainly something that we don't want to upset, and it's something that we want to make sure that it doesn't have any negative impacts. Similarly with tourism impacts, we want to look at what that will be. And we also want to look at, right now, if you consider that operations of this could be in 2042, so a person working there may not have started school yet. So consider that. So we do have to look at our economic development for youth, because I think that's going to be one of those opportunities that there are a lot of different contract jobs that will go in. It could be you're fixing trucks and they're going to have a whole fleet of trucks. It could be fixing heavy equipment, or, so you may be fixing a tractor one day, but you also could be fixing a machine that moves rock the next day. And I think those are the sort of things where we have all kinds of people to take care of that site, all kinds of people to work on it during the construction phase and the operations phase. So we see a lot of opportunity for youth to be able to develop and grow in this type of thing. And as I say, regionally, it's going to be putting a large number of people in the community working. I think we'll see, I'm not sure, but exactly what the wage scale will be, but it'll be somewhat more akin to the Bruce Nuclear site. And so from there, they should be good paying jobs in our community. Community Liaison Committee, they have been going for, I say, several years now, almost 8 years, almost 9. And they meet the first Thursday of every Monday at 7, and that's via Zoom. So anybody here can tune in and watch what's going on there. You get to ask questions. We have educational speakers every month, and then we go into a business session after that. So the agendas can be found on the South Bruce website at southbruce.ca. And I believe that puts us to Tarek. You can just roll that mouse if you want.
Good evening, everyone, Your Worship. So thank you for having us here today. I'm going to complement what Dave said today around the project. Dave spoke about the studies, the regional impact, and I will take a little bit more about the project specifically. So what you see there is the project layout. So we have so far almost 1,700 acres. The footprint, the surface footprint is going to be less than 250 acres. The rest of that area will continue to be farmed, business as usual. Whatever the land use that is being there will continue to be that. That's the only footprint for that small area. And I don't know, 50, 100 years after that, once we completely decommission the site, that piece of land, those remaining 250 will also be decommissioned and returned to its original status, so they could be farmed or whatever the original use was. So the footprint is small compared to the total land that we own or option. And also, as I said, we will, you can continue to practice whatever is being practiced today. I also wanted just to say that this is the depth to the proposed formation, which I will talk about shortly, is around 650 meters. That's almost the same height of the CN Tower in a very sealed formation, and overlain by also clay formation as well. So it's a very robust formation that we're trying to investigate at this point. So what do we mean by site selection? The three key pillars in this is a willing community, safety, and transportation. I think the key for us today, we need to talk about this safety. We need to understand the geology of the formation. Now, in Ignis, we drilled around 6 or 7 boreholes, and in South Bruce we are on the second borehole right now. The reason for that is we have a lot of information on the geology and the lithology in South Bruce from Bruce Power and other studies in the area. It is very heavily studied by even universities, research institutions, so we have a lot of good understanding of the geology there. So we want to understand the geology specific to South Bruce, because we know that geology varies across from one area to another. So those 2 boreholes right now that we have are really to confirm that. We also are doing a lot of seismic work and geology to understand if there is any fractures, deep-seated faults, anything else that we need to be aware that is happening right now. We also want to understand the water regime system, where does it flow to? We're talking around 600 meters deep, so that's not related to any shallow groundwater system that we talk about. This is not the water going to the Great Lakes or any lakes, whatever. That's water that is trapped for hundreds of millions. The borehole in those rocks is almost millions and millions of years old. So this is not connected to any kind of surface water flow regimes, whatever. This is completely insulated in that depth. So also we're looking at the environment, and I think Dave alluded to the fact that we're looking at everything environment. We are looking at bats, biodiversity, DNA of certain crops, meat, soil, air, you can name it. We're doing studies on that to understand right now at this stage the baseline and making sure that we assess this as we go forward. So that's a very comprehensive program that have never been done in any project of that scale. The other piece that is paramount for us is really to understand the transportation. We know there will be transportation of those used spent fuel from different sources and places, and we want to understand the regional transportation regime system and the local one. And we met with other neighboring communities, such as here in Kinloss, where we have Mennonites who use buggies and other means of transport that might be sensitive. So we want to understand the impact and how do we mitigate those impacts. We don't want to add more to the system. We want to relieve the system. So that's all taken into consideration. And we have 2 levels of engagement on the studies. One that is looking at that site and everything around the site, including the municipality of North Huron, and also the regional one that looks across, transport from New Brunswick and other locations where that spent fuel exists. So this is paramount for us to understand, do we have a system that is practical, safe to do and transport those spent fuels. The third one is willing community. We've said in the beginning, we are looking for the social license here. We did not proceed with buying a land and then go through an EIA process and go, spend 5 years of talking back and forth about the issues and the studies and all of that, and we go through a regularity process when we don't know if the community even is welcoming us there. So that's why it took 22 sites, more than 10 years, to go throughout Canada to look at all those different issues to understand if the community is actually willing to have the project in their municipality there. And that's really important for us because we are looking for the social license, not just the regularity process. If a decision made by South Bruce or Ignis that they are interested in proceeding that partnership and being a willing host, that does not mean in any shape or form that this is a done deal. This is just welcoming that we are interested. There is an EIA process or a regularity process that will go through the Nuclear Safety Commission, through the environmental impact assessment. We estimate between, 4 to 8 years of continuous regularity process where everyone, including South Bruce, have the right to intervene in this process. So this is not a done deal. If the community says yes, it means yes. There's still a lot going forward as more information is found and more, but it's really making sure that the community is interested. So for us, that partnership is very important, and that's why all those studies is to give enough relief and confidence that the project actually is safe. Second, it is actually environmentally sound, but most important, it actually adds positive value to the community of South Bruce and neighboring communities. What's in it for the community is paramount to this. It's not just about safety. We understand the stewardship piece, but also the community has to feel that they are now better off with the project, that there is benefits to this project that takes that community to a next level. We don't say normally economic value is the most important because we don't want this to be a kind of a shiny object. Really, it's about safety, environment, and making sure that the community understand the concept of stewardship. But with that also comes that the community has to benefit from that. So NWMO has a very strong reconciliation statement in everything we do. We recognize the historical wrongs in Canada, and we've been very diligent in making sure that every single policy, every single decision we have, that we engage with the indigenous communities in different ways. I personally went through many training around how we understand the history, how we move forward, how we co-design, and the fact that this project will not go anywhere without the First Nation support and approval of that probably speaks volume to that. So here is the land that we have right now. It's probably a little bit changed in the last couple of months, but this is, as I said, we're looking around 1,700 acres. The two green dots there, that's where our borehole sites, which I'm going to speak to. Right now, we're doing a lot of work to understand different aspects, environment, water, soil, geology, and all of that. And we have a lot of agreements with the landowners, whether we actually purchase the land or option the land. And many of those lands, many of them, the landowners actually, we bought the land, but they actually live and work on the land the same way they did before. The people build houses, they farm, everything as business as usual. So we did not impact the lifestyle of the people who work there. They benefit from this, from being partners with us, but also we did not stop agriculture. We did not change anything there. Everything is happening now. Actually, I just came yesterday from the field, and people, some of you do this, is harvesting corn and all of that. So business as usual, nothing changed. So a lot of that will continue to be the case even with the project on site. So we are really looking for an informed and willing host. The reason is we don't want a community to say yes today, and the yes is due to certain influence, whether it's financial influences or any other kind of influences, because we want this to be resilient. We don't want to come back in 5 years and the community change their mind, or the leadership change and now we change their mind. We want the community members, people of that community, to understand the benefits, the value of this project, so it could survive through different governments or different municipality, governance and all of that. So we are really adamant on understanding that community has to show to NWMO if they are actually comfortable, they want this project on there, and they have to be really compelling evidence. But how the community decide, that's not for us to decide. We're not dictating if it should be a referendum or a council decision-making or whatever the process. It's up to the community. We are arm's length of this process. We do not interfere how the community wants to do that, because they are the best who understand how this works. So we're really arm's length from that, but we want to make sure that end of the day, by 23, that the community show enough evidence that they actually want this project so it could survive the next step of this project. So I'm really happy about this slide because it shows the borehole lithology or log from the first borehole. So just to let everyone, we have drilled 2 boreholes. The first one reached to up 880 meters, hit the basement rock or the Precambrian igneous formation. This is the first time we have lithology from in South Cruise, Tees Water, that shows the whole thing. The formation that we are targeting is called the Coburg Formation. It's a 33 meters in depth, way more than we're asking. Overland, which is a very kind of clayish limestone, very dense. There is no flow of water there in that formation. We're way below any groundwater flow systems. The pore water that we've initially tested, we're still doing a lot of testing, is in the millions of years. So that is not flowing as some saw in the media that it's just going to the lakes and it's impacting the ground. It doesn't work like that. The water system is not as is portrayed. It's completely an insulated system. That Coburg Formation is overlain by more than 200 meters of dense solid clay above it and under it. So it's a very solid one. Above that, everything we're doing from the engineering side is how do we encapsulate those spent fuels in a way that they would stand for millions and millions of years. Yes, it is safe now where it is being, but it is managed and manned by more than 300 people. So we don't know how the future looks. COVID taught us a lesson that, you never know what happens. We could hit one day with a tsunami or whatever. We've seen how things happen in Japan. It is safe there right now, but we think we need something that could withstand the time and the climate change. So that's where we are today. We are doing a lot of work now on the site. So beside borehole 1 is done. Borehole 2 is around 50 meters deep. Again, we're going to get to the same level. What we're doing at borehole 1 now is actually we're doing a lot of hydraulic testing. Put that for me, water in that borehole. We push it and we're under pressure to see how the system behaves. We're taking isotopes. We're doing water quality. We're doing geophysics. We have, if you drive around the Concession 8 in next week after the hunting season, I guess, you'll see a lot of seismic lines. We are doing a lot of seismic to understand the geophysics of the formation. This is work that is like top-notch. The information that we work with is actually shared with all of those ones. We have, I guess, I've seen partnership with every university in Canada in the areas of the water, environment, geology, engineering, and internationally we have partners in France and in Finland to understand what's going on, what are the best practices. So a lot of work is going on to understand the safety and also working with our partners in South Cruise to understand the willingness piece and the transportation. Now there is a regional discussion that we are going throughout Canada around the transportation. I think with that, I think that's probably the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to now open up to council now for questions, comments, concerns. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Eve. Through you, gentlemen. How's the hospital in Wingham? Is it able to react to, say, a spill where there's radiation involved? Like, is there communication with them so that they could get keyed in? Obviously, they'd be the first, so they're the closest hospital. Is that something you've been thinking of?
Yeah, we're doing a study on both emergency management and how we would, how that would be handled, whether it be something that would be handled through our efforts or through NWMO's efforts, and then where would they go? So we're looking regionally there. We know that some of the hospitals in the area do have, deal with radiation on a daily basis, or like, not necessarily daily basis, but they deal with radiation from the nuclear plant. And we'll also be looking at the hospital here to see that. So we have, say, consultants out working on that right now, and they're talking to knowledge holders in the community.
Okay, follow-up question, please. You've gone, since 2012, you're into your third council. I'm just curious what the atmosphere is. Is the willingness the same, or you're getting different people, so how's that looking?
At this point, certainly from council still supportive of moving ahead at this point. And we haven't had something where they've said stop at this point. So that's really the key. They continue to, I'm taking a budget to them at next council meeting. I'll let you know after that if they're still supportive. I hope so. And, but, so far, things are going. We obviously have, if you come up to our community, you'll see there's some people that are against the project. And we also have people that are for the project. So there's a division. And there's a whole lot of people we don't know where they stand. And I think that's really a major part of it. We know that all of the information's not in. We know it'll be another 2 years before, most of the information to make a decision will be, an informed decision will be in. So we're hoping that people will wait, to get the answers before they make a decision.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. Thank you, John, for the slide presentation. The questions that I have are a little broader than what you're showing us here. I was just curious as to what kind of level, or what is the total product that you're going to be able to put into this site? Because you mentioned there about decommissioning 100 years down the road. So my question is really exactly how much are we talking about? And you alluded to just briefly about other sites, other nuclear producers having their spent rods or spent fuel coming here. So I'm just curious as to how big is this, and how far away are they going to be coming with the fuel or with this products to put here, and because that encapsulates rail, that brings in roads and everything else that in our areas, that what condition they are, and how is this spent fuel being transported through our areas, and from how far? Like if it's New Brunswick, I mean, is it that rail, surface, air? How big does this get? I'll let you answer that question first.
So, the majority of the spent fuel is in Ontario, actually. The majority of it is in Ontario from our nuclear power plants. And that's exactly what's happening. That's what we're trying to understand the rules. And I just want to let you know some of the experiments that we have tried on those canisters that transport that, they were actually shot by missiles, and they did not budge. So we know that actually the safety rate is super high, but we can't just say there is no incident. You never know. But so far, everything we have seen is very promising, and don't think we would even proceed if we know this was an issue. Now, I need to also explain the different issues of transportation. Transportation of a new spent fuel is, Bruce Power is doing this all the time, so it's not like new thing so we know the level of security and the guarding that happen, how they do that, so we can build on that. But also we're conscious of workers, employees coming to the upside, which shoes they're gonna go through, what kind of impact to the communities that they will go through, how is that gonna change? This is all what transportation studies are looking at, whether on the local level or the regional level. How many spent fuels right now? I know it's around 5 million, but don't quite know the number because there is a change, but we're very transparent around the numbers. They are actually, we update them every year on our website, and we say how much this is today, the inventory of those spent fuel. I just want to also confirm in black and white, we are not accepting any nuclear waste from outside Canada. Period. nothing towards our, maybe from, I don't know, Saskatchewan one day, but nothing from Canada, from outside Canada. This is not legal, it's not, it's against all international regulations. We will not accept anything from outside Canada. And again, the technology is changing now dramatically. You know, the SMRs are moving on, and there are completely different systems that we are thinking of considering, seeing others doing that. But we are not, it's not just going to be somewhere where everyone brings their waste from other countries, decides to move this. That's not needed. And I think what we've even discussed with South Cruise, whatever they agree on, if they agree this is a hosting community, that's a condition. If that changed for whatever reason, I don't know, 100 years from now, someone says, well, we need others, they can renegotiate everything, and this is not a done deal, it's not contaminant, and it's a
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Through you. Just with your site plan on, as far as the 200 acres of the above ground, you've got a sealing material, compaction plant, used fuel, packaging plant. What processes can you tell us of that will be happening? Like if the fuel's being transported in a safe manner container, are those containers being opened and repacked and reprocessed? So I'm just,
That's a great question. We had actually a 1-hour presentation to see exactly your question is what happens when you take those, they come and go in a certain canister, in Bruce Power, for example, they come onto the site, they go into an unmanned, cell. It's not even negative and positive pressure. It's a completely technology that completely capture all of these things. They get removed and put into another kind of brass containers, I guess, copper containers, and then they repackage. That happens on site. Some people ask us, why can't you just do it on the nuclear, plants and all of that? The challenge is the technology of packaging is so advanced that you want it to be centralized in one point. But the transportation of those spent fuels follows the best practice that Bruce Power is doing today. So that's not going to change. But the packaging is done in a free. I just remember from what we presented, like you have, I don't know, that thick of lead and then stainless steel. It's a very, very bulletproof kind of system that will take care of that. And again, there is measures on what we call the risk factor. You don't wait until someone mentioned spill. Those spent fuels are not even liquid, they're ceramic. The spill might be, maybe some of the water on the side, but the waste itself is super ceramic, it's solid, it doesn't go anywhere, it goes in a very contained system. That those kinds of incidents, when they happen, they're very rare, but if they happen, the early warning system, the guarding systems are best in the world there. So
one more follow-up question, and then I'm done. Are there any other radioactive material being stored here, like the medium, say like, the workwear and that, nothing, it's just a high level? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Trevor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Eve. Gentlemen, I'm not sure exactly who might able to answer this, but my question is that how will the technical feasibility studies affect the willingness? So the conversation, or at least the conversation, Dave, that you had mentioned is a lot of conversation about a referendum. Well, a referendum usually happens during an election. Unless you're going to have a special referendum. I guess my question is that because these technical feasibility studies are going to be done after the current municipal election, how is these studies going to potentially affect willingness within that community?
Sure. Quite easily what happens is we do a by-election, and that by-election operates, same as your municipal, except we're not electing people, we're asking the question. So same process that you go through for an election. 6 months before, we have to have the question prepared. People are able to appeal it if they don't like the question. We go through that process, and then they can go through. There's opportunities for people to lobby for or against the question, and so it can be done quite independently. The technical studies, as you say, to be informed and to make an informed decision, it's good to get those results from our scientists that are working on it, or engineers, or different kind of consultants that we have. So that's if council wants to have an informed decision, then that will be best done when the studies are done.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yes, through you, Reeve. Yes, this is a breadbasket of Ontario here, this Bruce County and Huron. And I noticed that one of you said there will be no negative impacts in agriculture. Could you just expound on that a little bit? I'm not sure which one of you.
I think that's one of the areas that we're just started to study, and that's kind of what we're looking for, is that we want to ensure that the people who are farming are still able to farm, that there's no impact from there. There's a study of the environment, study on groundwater, study on wells, study on a lot of different things to ensure that there isn't an interruption in that. We're also looking at what the impact has been in other nuclear areas. Like, we obviously have one really close to us in the Bruce area. It's been going for 60 years. There's definitely a lot of farming around there. And so we have that to draw on as far as information, as well as that Pickering and Darlington stations. So right here in Ontario, we've got the 3 samples, not as much farming around Pickering, but certainly around Darlington and Bruce, there's lots of farming.
To that, we're not, as I mentioned earlier, environment and safety is not something we know. If there is an issue, we wouldn't even say something like that. We wouldn't even proceed. But I think we want to help agriculture and farmers through the stigma sometimes. I live beside something. You hear people say, what happens to my crops? What happens to my dairy products and all of that? We want to be conscious of that. The small farmers, the medium ones is. So there's a lot of ideas how we work with them. First and foremost is we think of different programs, like how do you make sure that they have access to resources to monitor or sample those, products or crops or dairy or whatever. That's number one. How do we, if there is some stigma sometimes, how do you connect those farmers with the market so they are not left alone? They're fighting some perceived notion of some of that. So we are aware of that. So we don't want them to feel, I'm close to something like that. It might be zero impact, but still that perception could be something that we need to be aware of. And now we're thinking of programs. How do we make sure first is how do we make sure that product is marketed and promoted in a way that help them to move on and not to be left behind.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Along that same vein, we've heard some goat farmers not complain, but they're worried that they're going to lose their market in Toronto, because of this big bad thing. And we're not sure what the Milk Marketing Board, the dairy, is thinking. Have you contacted either the Milk Marketing or the Dairy Milk Board? Because you're going to have to quell their concerns, because a market, a person who buys, say, goat milk has every right in the world to say, "Oop, I don't want that. It might be bad." So we have to protect the farmer the best we can. You have to protect the farmer the best you can. So there is there's no marketing issues. So you've got a bit of a job. But I would get talking with the different milk marketing boards and show them results and soften it.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I was saying. It's what we're not even looking at. Any impacts we're taking this for granted that if there is impact, we're not going to proceed. But the point you raised is exactly the case. We are in contact with the CFA, Bruce County Federation of Agriculture, Dairy Grain Association. We are still, again, looking for that specific issues to those specific agriculture. How do we make sure we do this the right way? Unfortunately, some of those farmers, and we take this seriously, we're not ranking people because they like the product or not. Yes, this is a legitimate concern, but how do we work with them and others in the area is how do we work together? So we have now people who are in the field reaching out to those landowners and farmers and asking, how do we work together on this? How do we make sure that if it's a stigma issue, how do we deal with that? So as I said, environmental programs, commercialization of their products. What is it that could cause that impact, and how do we mitigate that with them and not just ignoring that. So that's a real concern that we raised, and we're aware of it. And you're right, it is a lot of heavy lifting, but we understand that, and people deserve to get an explanation. And maybe that's on the impact side, but also, I don't want to sugarcoat this now, but I think we are working on some kind of center of expertise in South Bruce. This is probably, I guess, the marvel in the area. This is the area where we have a huge building facility where we have a lot of scientists, engineers, where we can also offer training for in the agricultural sector around, robotics, areas that the agriculture community is interested in having, maybe even partnership with University of Wales or others to support farmers, maybe scholarships as well. So it's a basket of different options to support the agriculture. We know they are key in the area, and we want to make sure that they see the benefits as everyone else.
Thank you. Deputy
So,
Reeve?
if I
Yes,
could just
go ahead.
add, Reeve, the other things that we're doing in some of our principles, we've asked for two things that are related to that. One is that they help in the marketing aspect of agriculture, that we support and work on the marketing side so that there are opportunities, there are outlets for products. The other thing too is that there is one of our principles goes to the question of if there's damages to businesses in the community. It could be any, a retail business, but it could also be a farm. So we're looking for that protection as well. And I think those are some things. So we're ensuring that our ratepayers are safe.
Thank you. Deputy Reeve, second?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that, members of council, feel free to, reach out to, obviously, I know me and the Reeve have been, this is probably the third time we've heard this over the past couple of years about just getting certain updates per the time. Feel free to reach out to Dave, as well as, the CAO of South Bruce, Leanne Martin. She's more than happy to get you coordinated into getting updates from MWMO and South Bruce as to how these studies are coming or when the studies are available, if you want to read these studies. But I mean, these studies are going to be going for a while. It's not going to be a picture point in time. I think, these are years in the making, and I mean, I trust the fact that obviously sometimes we make a decision we think the decision's being made today, but the decision's not going to be made for a while yet. And I mean, let's not jump the gun to concern ourselves with what the studies say until the studies are said. So I mean, I trust that South Bruce is doing what they need to do as it relates to their economics and what we need. These are concerns, as we are a neighbor of South Bruce, obviously, and how it's going to socially economic us. I trust that we as council, whatever, this council, the next council, or the next council, takes the opportunity to read those social stuff and all the reports to make sure they're getting an informed decision on how they see fit. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you very much, Deputy Reeve. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very kindly for coming out. We do appreciate the update. As Trevor said, we can, each and every one of us can reach out directly or through our CEO if you like. Thank you kindly.
Thank you for your time.
Stay safe. Good night. Okay, we're going to go to reports, 7.1.1, the clerk's report. We're going to have Carson Lamb speak to the regular meetings of council for 2022.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before council is a proposed schedule of regular council meetings for 2022. This schedule was developed in accordance with the township's procedure bylaw, consideration of statutory holidays, 2022 conferences, budget meetings, and uniquely to this year's schedule, the 2022 municipal election. And importantly, this is the schedule, aligns with the exact same structure for schedule council has used in both 2020 and 2021. At this time, staff are looking for council to support the proposed schedule, and if approved, township staff would advertise on the township's new website and in the local papers.
Thank you. Questions, concerns, comments? Not seeing any.
Are we ready?
I apologize, Anita, go
No
ahead.
problem. Carson, can you please change the name of the last report for the Police Services Board? It has the wrong title on it.
In the schedule, you mean?
Yeah,
Yep, we can make that change.
thank you.
Thank you very much. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated November 1st, 2021 regarding the schedule for regular meetings for council for 2022. And further, the proposed 2022 schedule for regular meetings of council be approved and posted. And further, the attached 2022 schedule for North Huron's committees and boards be received by council for information purposes. Do I have a mover? Paul moves. Seconder, please. Anita seconds. All in favor? Carries. Sorry, did anybody want to have a discussion on that? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to draft fees and charges bylaw, and we're going to have Director Donna White speak to it first.
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So the report we prepared on the 2022 draft fees and charges bylaw was in your package, and I just wanted to make a couple of clarifications. So the first one is we're not passing this bylaw tonight. Tonight we're having a discussion, and then once council has had the opportunity to discuss and provide direction, then the final bylaw will come back at the next meeting. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page for that one. So as outlined in my report, and I spoke to you briefly about this on the October 22nd year-to-date budget meeting, there was 3 main changes outlined in the report, and that was with the development charges, the Huron County planning fees, and the water and wastewater fees as part of our 5-year study with PM Ross. So those are the 3 main changes that were incorporated into the report and into the bylaw. The one thing that is a bit confusing is that Vicki does have a child care report which is coming up next, and I want to assure you that we want to make sure that you had full discussion on that as well. So the motion in my report has left it open-ended that whatever decision you make regarding Vicki's report will definitely be included in the fee bylaw when it comes back to council. So whatever direction you provide in the next discussion, that will definitely be incorporated into the bylaw. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. So one of the topics that I just wanted to briefly outline that non-resident fees are still in the bylaw. There's been no change. So until council has any sort of discussion on that this evening and provides direction, those are still included. So 2 areas that have been had non-resident fees for many years is water and sewer and cemetery. So that has been in, water and sewer has been non-resident fees at 1.5% have been in here for more than 20 years. And so that's still staying in there. The cemetery non-resident fees, I'm not sure which year that came in, but that has also been a standard for quite a long time. However, last year, 2 new non-resident fees that council adopted was for recreation and for daycare. And so in my report for daycare and recreation, when I say no changes, I just want to confirm that we haven't put the price up of anything relating to daycare or recreation, but the same as last year, those non-resident fees are still in this draft bylaw until we hear from council for direction and for the outcome of Vicki's report. So I just wanted to, another point I wanted to make is that, as you know, one of our priorities is making all our documents accessible. So our fee bylaw is like 30-some pages, so I do want to give the gals at the office credit for having converted the whole bylaw into accessible format, so we will be able to post it on our website. So that was one of our goals, to spend that kind of time this year to make sure that we could accomplish that. So at this point then, I would like to ask council if they have any questions that I can answer and move the discussion forward.
Council, is there any questions? Paul, I believe you would like to speak.
Through you, Reeve. Yes, I'd just like to ask Donna, I was looking over the fee structure here in the town hall theater where we're sitting right now, and I feel charging a private entity to come in and charge them only $106 for this, and yet down at the pavilion in the open area, charge $75. I feel this should be a bit higher for the town hall. I'd appreciate that we raise that fee. Because the work that is involved here, where down at the pavilion, it'd be, wouldn't really be a whole lot of work, but here it would be, and I just feel they're getting a real good building here for that amount. That's what I'm leaving that with.
Councillor Heffer, if you don't mind, I believe our clerk has a motion. You may want to forward the motion.
Okay.
So, and Councillor Heffer, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks, the way it sounds is basically your motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to amend the draft 2022 fees and charges bylaw to increase the fee for performance for private per day amount to, did you have a certain percentage or amount in mind, or maybe the Director of Recreation has some input on what is viable in an amount to increase that specific fee?
But, okay.
Right behind you, Donna. Go ahead, Vicki.
Through you, Your Worship. The Councillor Heffer had raised a question about that earlier today, and things, and when someone does use when they do rent the facility here, they are charged for staff time on top of that rental fee. However, in our discussions, I can understand where he's coming from. I believe Councillor Heffer was looking for something similar to what would be charged at a hall or something like that, because of the capacity of this facility and the caliber of performances that are coming in. So I believe he was looking at doubling the fee.
Councillor Heffer, would you be good with doubling the fee then?
At least, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
At least? Did you want to go higher? Now is the time we're going to make a motion. Give me a motion.
Well, I like to, if other people, I don't want to go against anybody else here. Like, I just feel this is a beautiful spot, and they more than double the traffic coming in here, seat-wise, and this is second to none for the acoustics in this stage, so.
Other councils have an opinion? Go ahead, Chris.
This is a procedural one. I'd like to make a further amendment. How does that work when there's an amendment already?
So, procedural wise, so right now you just have a mover of a draft motion, so we don't have a motion yet until there's a seconder. There's two ways to go about it. You could amend, if Councillor Heffer is in favor, you could amend that motion to include your amendments to it. Or you could deal with it as a separate motion if logistically it would make sense. But as a starting point, so we would want to flush out Councillor Heffer's motion as a starting point, look for a seconder, and then go from there for an amendment. And if Councillor Heffer's motion didn't get a seconder as it reads, right, then we can amend it right away to see if that makes sense. So right now, the draft motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to amend the draft 2022 fees and charges bylaw to double the fee for performance private per day. So if Councillor Heffer, is that's the motion you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor Sipes seconding. We'll open it up now for questions and comments, so go ahead, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Rafe. I'd like to make a further amendment, and further that North Huron Council directs staff to remove the bylaw adopted that charges non-residence fees to recreation and to daycare.
I think that's a totally different.
So there's two ways to go about it. You could deal with the motion as drafted right now if the mover and the seconder are in favor of the change, and then you could put that forward as a second motion after we've dealt with this one.
That's why I asked procedural.
Yep. Or you could, if the mover and the seconder are fine with the amendment, you can make that now. So there's two ways to go about it.
So then I will look to the mover and seconder. Do they want to amend their motion, or do they want to leave it the way it is?
And that's, if you, just for clarity, for council, that's not to say you can't discuss this still if you vote on this motion, right? You are able to make more than one motion and have a discussion, right? So if you want to deal just with the performance private per day fee as a starting point, then you can do that, and then you can have the non-resident fee discussion after that, if that is what you want to do.
Paul, Trevor?
Well, as long as it's brought up. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that Mr. Heffer does not want to make the change, and we're going to talk about this right after this motion.
But it can be tied in though, like it will be tied in, like it'll come up, is what I'm reading from what you said, Clerk.
Yeah, so you can, if you want to keep them separate, if the discussion on specifically on this performance per day fee is wrapped up, you can put it to a vote, and then after that, you can have, Councilor Palmer can put his motion forward, and you can have that discussion.
Okay.
Right, if you want to keep them separate. If you want to do it all as one, Councilor Heffer, you as the mover, and Deputy Reesipe, you as the seconder, can agree to the amendment, and you can deal with it all as one. So it's up to the mover and the seconder of whether you would like to deal with it as one or keep it separate.
Councilor Heffer, how do you choose?
I go with it all as one.
I'm fine with that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead.
Are we having a discussion about this motion? So we.
Yep.
Okay. Through you, Reeve. I'm just curious if we're putting that up, doubling that amount. How does it compare to the rest of the places that we rent out? The Hot Stove Lounge, all the other. If we're looking at one fee that's not correct, should we be looking at all the fees that aren't correct? I don't know how they compare. To make that judgment, whether it's a fair thing to double it or not.
Through you, Worship.
Yep.
In terms of the fees for the theater and things, staff had looked into this last year to see how we were comparing with other theaters in the area. The fees that we are charging are comparable, however, the difference is that this theater is much larger than the other areas. So that was one of the factors in the discussion this morning. I did a quick review to see where things were sitting at in terms of what the other areas were charging. So it's not exactly apples to apples when you look at the other theaters and things like that. When the performance comes in here too, this has been an ongoing discussion among staff, as well as when a performance comes in, as to the requirements of staff to prepare for that and to clean up afterward. And it was already felt that the fee was not enough to cover those costs. So we were considering possibly doing something in the next year, basically. Councilor Heffer expressed concern, as I indicated. We looked at it again today. We did just have discussions about this last week. And staff do not have an issue or any concerns. We already have interest from some large, big name performers to come in back to the theater and things. So we don't really see an issue with this, because it deals specifically with the private groups that would be coming in, not the students.
I just,
To hear you, Your Worship, if Councilor Faulkner wants to put forward a motion and council agrees, we could certainly undertake a full review of all of our fees in 2022, but we would need a motion from council.
so I just want to get clarification from the clerk, because my understanding is you asked to double the price of renting this theater out, and we added in other facilities. Could the clerk just read the motion back?
So so basically, I just want to back up to the discussion we were having. right? So Counselor Palmer has requested an amendment to the original motion, so I've crafted that now, so I just want to make sure all parties are in favor of how that's worded. So right now, the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to amend the draft 2022 fees and charges bylaw to double the fee for performance private per day for the Wingham Town Hall Theater, and further that staff be directed to amend the draft 2022 fees and charges bylaw to remove the non-resident fees for recreation and childcare services. So, Councilor Palmer, does that capture the amendment you were looking for?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and the mover and the seconder are fine with that as drafted? Okay.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, through Reeve. I find those two totally separate items, so I will let it go for the vote, but I just personally think those are two separate items. Unless
Anyone
we-
else? Seeing, go ahead, Trevor.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. So, I mean, I want to make sure that, we as council are clear is these fees and charges bylaws are recommendations from staff. Period. Recommendations. We as council can determine whatever fee or charge we see fit. And if council wants to make individual motions on certain fees and charges, we have that ability to do that. If council wants to commingle the motions, we have the ability to do that. We just need to make sure we're clear as to what the motion is and vote accordingly. If you, what I'm hearing is if you believe they're two separate instances and you don't believe in one of them, but you believe in the other one, you have to make your motion, your decision to vote how you best see fit. After this motion is decided, any councillor can determine or request any decision or recommendation from staff to do other further work as it relates to further fees and charges bylaws. I mean, arguably the hope is, and I'm looking at staff as I see this, is for the most part, when we look at these recommendations are looked upon as the market. What is the market willing to absorb when we put these fees and charges bylaws in place? Arguably, the staff are the people who know the market, not necessarily councillors. We're not going into individual markets to find out whether we should be charging X or Y. So, I mean, understandably, that we want to make sure that staff are doing that, and I think we hope that that is the case. But I mean, ultimately, when a motion's on the table, I mean, we look at it in the sense that, as a councillor, you have the right to make a motion on whatever you want. You may or may not get support, but you have that right as a councillor. So when I hear the question is, I don't want to go against somebody, it's not about going against somebody, it's about what you thought is the best interest of the municipality, and the rest of council will determine whether that is the case or not. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to decide to give recommendation and council staff what they want from us, and that's what we're having to do tonight. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear on the sense that I accept any motion from any councillor. Choose whatever you want to read. That's your prerogative. That's your right as a councillor and elected official. Don't look for us to be, it should not necessarily be unanimous. I mean, that's not the democratic process. So, I mean, that's the conversation I want to make sure that we had here tonight. I think these are good questions and good comments. So, we've got a motion on the floor. Let's decide if there's anything more to talk about, and then let's have that motion.
So just for clarification, Councillor Heffer, you're suggesting that all users,
No, I'm just saying through you, Reeve, just a private, big-time user coming in. Not the people from the municipality. It's for the big people
Okay.
coming in.
okay. And so, I'm going to look over to Councillor Palmer now. When you did your add-on for the rest of the, I forget how it was worded, activities I'm going to call it, did you mean for It wasn't just this theater, it was,
For recreational
For
purposes,
all-
but not the cemetery.
okay,
Okay.
so just recreation, and that's for all users.
And childcare, yeah, that would be fair and equitable. Yeah, so no user fees.
No user fees, like 1.5 times and all that stuff we talked about. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, okay. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. Further questions and comments?
So, Reeve, just I want to make sure so we're clear on what we're talking about here then. So, and I want to make sure that we have it here, because the actual motion that Councillor Heffer is talking about, to make it even clearer, is the fee and charges bylaw indicates performance, private, per day. That's the discussion that Councillor Heffer is talking about. So, I mean, I don't know if it needs to be in the motion, but that is what we're talking about, just so everybody's clear.
Okay. Okay,
Sir.
go ahead.
Yeah, Reeve, I should have said, instead of user fees, I should have said non-resident fees. So it does not include the cemeteries or water sewer, for instance. It's just the recreation
The Recreation Department
and childcare.
and childcare.
Yep, and that's
We
captured.
said- Yep.
That's captured.
Okay. So if you don't mind reading it one more time, then we'll call the recorded vote.
Yep, so the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to amend the draft 2022 fees and charges bylaw to double the fee for performance private per day for the Wingham Town Hall Theater, and further that council directs staff to amend the draft 2022 fees and charges bylaw to remove the non-resident fees for recreation and childcare services.
Okay.
So if there's no more discussion, I will call the vote. So Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
No.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
No.
So that motion carries 5-2, with the noes being Councillor Falconer and Reeve Bailey. So at this time, I'm just looking for a motion, the last part of the Director of Finance's motion, which is that staff be directed to bring the fees and charges bylaw adopting the 2022 fees and charges back for the November 15th, 2021 council meeting.
Do I have a mover? I have Chris moving. I need a seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries. Okay, Recreation and Community Services, 7.3.1 Child Care Services Provider Agreement. Vicki, I believe you wanted to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. Given that I'm kind of thrown a little bit by the recommendation and what I prepared for my report to give to council. So just to kind of highlight then, the report before you this evening, council, is a child care service provider agreement that has been forwarded to us from Huron County. In late 2020, the province of Ontario updated their funding criteria to align with key provincial priorities. The province also implemented the requirement that the municipal service managers, who in our case is Huron County, enter into a formalized funding agreement with child care service providers in order to receive provincial funding. The child care service provider agreement was attached to the report, was developed in consultation with the province and is reflective of their priorities. And it promotes fair and equal access to child care programs and services, inclusivity of programs and services, and affordability. Staff are recommending that council enter into that agreement with the county given that the province is the main funder of childcare services in North Huron. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, I'm going to open up questions. Go ahead, Trevor.
I will move the motion.
Okay, seconder, please. I have Anita seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. In that agreement, is there any provisions for when the residual costs are passed on to a taxpayer of a municipality, and it's not equally divided amongst the users of the system? Where is the fair and equitable portion of that being ignored?
Through you, Your Worship. So over the course of the years, like currently, we are in a deficit situation. Council will recall from that third quarter review. And we, mainly due to COVID-19 protocols that have been put in place and restrictions that have been put in place. However, over the years, the Child Care Services has been able to generate a surplus that's been put in reserves. So it's kind of a give and take. There's going to be good years and there's going to be bad years in those situations. Now, sometimes those surpluses are generated from monies or funding that the county, it's provincial funding that the county's been able to flow to us in terms of, you know, maybe we've planned for some type of improvement to the building itself. So it's the building's our asset, and they're able to maybe offset some of our costs to upgrade or maintain that building and things. So that helps to generate a surplus at the end of the year. So the funding that we receive isn't strictly for the programs themselves. It's a variety of funding that we receive, but sometimes that funding offsets costs that would normally be paid by the North Huron taxpayer to maintain an asset. Whether it's a roof that's replaced, siding, eaves, door replacements, things like that. So, you know, the hope is that will kind of balance out when there is some kind of cost to the taxpayer, because then the money that we may have budgeted for that capital improvement goes back into reserves.
Thank you. Any other, go ahead, Kevin.
Just to follow up, yeah, through you, Reeve. So then really North Huron is not providing a child care service. We're just the caretakers of the system, because Huron County is mandating our policies. I'm just wondering, what I'm getting at is, if it's a subsidy given to North Huron to provide daycare for everyone, and it's not equally divided up, what I'm getting at, so you've got 200 spots, and you've got 210 people wanting those spots. Those extra 10 people are at a disadvantage, and if they're coming from the municipality that's paying the taxes to upkeep it, it doesn't work out in my, maybe I'm just going around in circles, and I should probably stay my question from this part on, but I just don't see how Huron County is dictating, or for us to pass this, their requirements, how that makes sense for our municipality.
Through you, Your Worship?
Yes.
I'd just like to take a step back and explain the relationship. The funding is actually coming from the province, so it's provincial tax dollars, and then the province then designates what they call a consolidated municipal manager as the overseer or the administrator of the funding. The administrator of the funding is Huron County. The province dictates to Huron County how much they have to contribute. Huron County doesn't have a choice. It's dictated to them, and depending on which program it is, whether it's before and after school, or it's the main daycare, or it's early on or anything like that, the formula changes. The priorities that have been listed for fair and equal access, inclusivity, and affordability isn't being dictated by Huron County. It's being dictated by the province. The province is the licensing body. They are the ones who gives us the license to operate the child care center. We operate the child care center under provincial legislation. So we have to, and it's their funding and their funding criteria that we have to comply with in order to get the funding. The province doesn't see it the way that we see it. They don't see the geographical boundary of North Huron because the centers are, they just see it as a center and it's servicing this whole area. And since the money is coming from the province, it's coming from provincial tax dollars. So that's how they're seeing it. They don't see it as a North Huron taxpayer paying for something. The majority of the money is coming from the province, and then the next big contributor is the parents. And then North Huron is right now is running a deficit, I believe, around $30,000 out of a $1.5 million budget.
So I'm just going to follow up with that a bit because of what I've learned today. So when we first started this cross-border discussion 2.5, 3 years ago, what Vicki is talking about was not in place. Well, we've been playing around with the cross-border agreement. The provincial government has, which is 70%, I think, of our, and I don't know, whatever it is of our funding, have said that they don't recognize cross-border. If it's a child, it's a child. It doesn't matter where they're from. If we don't follow their mandate, we lose $700,000 worth of funding, and they don't care. It's quite blunt. So basically, they have a lot, it's too hard for them to get down into the weeds where we are, and so, long story is, we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot by losing that. This was never brought to any of our attentions because the province did it. It went through the county. It was part of a county meeting, and it never came up because nobody was negotiating a deal. So this is why it's come up, everyone. So, yeah, that's why, Kevin. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I want to make sure is that, is we always have a concern when North Huron has to pay something. So North Huron residents typically in this particular indication has a deficit in the child care because of COVID. So I've heard a couple of times, well, who's paying for that? Who's paying for that deficit? And you're absolutely right. That's North Huron residents that are paying for that deficit. Well, when we have years of surpluses, we seem to be okay with packing those into reserves and not questioning or sending those off to the percentage of who it's being used for. So I mean, we have to recognize that, you know, from a province perspective, do I understand the province's, it doesn't matter who you are or where you live, you should have fair and equal access. I completely understand that. From the conversation of where we sit, yes, it's hard to sometimes to say, just because the building is in North Huron, why do we have to eat some of the costs? And I mean, that's a discussion for a number of other things and another of other days. But the issue has been ultimately, and I can talk about this in all honesty, from a child care perspective, when the previous manager of child care services always came to us, she looked at the daycare service as a whole, not just the main center, the whole thing. And for better part of 5 years that I can recall, we've never been in a deficit. So the taxpayer of North Huron has not eaten any costs associated to the child care service. Where we're eating it today, and where we've been very adamant in trying to advocate for more money, is we are having this problem because of the cohorting and because of the COVID-19 restrictions. So, I mean, if we didn't have COVID-19 restrictions and the cohorting, and they had before after school open April, May, and June of last year, we probably wouldn't be talking about a deficit. So, I mean, we have to talk about the whole thing and not just the one part. So I just want to make that comment, Reeve.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, it's kind of fell by the wayside, but the other portion of what I was talking about the availability. This, for 4 years, I've been pushing for getting daycare in Blythe. So the fair and equitable access to daycare it's far easier to have people around within walking distance or half a mile of the daycare, using the daycare, but when you're 20 kilometers away, it's not fair and equitable. I just would like to see that at some time, we re-look at how our daycare is distributed amongst everyone, because there's more, I got more Sternberry people around me too that would use the service.
But we, Vicki has worked on that, and we have, because COVID-19 hit, we were starting with, and I don't want to get onto it tonight, honestly, I don't want to get onto it tonight, but I do agree with you, Kevin. Yeah, we have looked at Blythe, and I think it was we couldn't get help or something, and we will continue and come back as a council to look at that another time, because this is North Huron. And therefore, the North Huron residents should be first in line for anything, and if there's anything left over, I don't mind it going to outside of a North Huron resident, but I can clearly see and understand, and I think all of us should be able to understand, as residents of North Huron, that it's North Huron that should be taken care of first, and then as good neighbors, we would share. Having said that, I think the conversation should be over now.
I just want to say, just as your comment, that's not how those services are being offered today. So I mean, I think as what Councillor Faulkner is talking about is that distribution and how we talk about that in the future. And I think post COVID-19, whenever that is, I think ultimately, I think staff is going to be bringing that.
Yes.
That's on the docket, and I think I'm sure as Councillor Faulkner, it's constantly in his thought processes as well. So I mean, it's going to be at this table for years to come. I can guarantee you that.
No, we'll have these discussions another day as we move forward, because I'm sure Mr. McBurney would like to see a daycare over in Blythe too.
Certainly.
There you go. Okay. I think I have a mover and a seconder on that, do I not? Thank you very much. Can you just remind me who it was?
So your mover's Deputy Reeve Sipe and your seconder's Councillor Van Hitterson.
Thank you very much for robust conversation. I now call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. So we're going to move on now to Vicki again, 7.3.2. And it's the Legion request to hold a Remembrance Day ceremony. Take it away. Take it away, girl.
Before you, I have a few reports to review. The first, and I'll try to make it very quick. The first one is the Blythe Legion request for Remembrance Day being held on November 11th of this year. The request is that that you approve the report as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, comments, or concerns? Not?
I will move it.
Question?
Oh, go ahead.
They mentioned, 20 people? Did I see that somewhere?
It can go up to 100.
Can go up to 100, yeah, because I didn't want to be limited to a particular number, other than 100's good.
And this is outside the Blythe Memorial Community Hall. In past years, there actually has been services inside where they host hundreds, and then due to COVID restrictions, they've been doing an outdoor service, and masks are going to be promoted and worn during the service.
Yeah, it was the request that had 10 to 15, so yeah, if they can go to 100, great.
Okay, I have a mover and seconder. Who was it?
I was going to second it.
Okay, Kevin seconding. All in favor? Carries. 7.3.3, if you want to take it away. Wingham Legion.
Wingham Legion is requesting, and again, the Remembrance Day service being held on November 11th. This request does include a road closure, which can have some financial impact that is reported in the report, and you just need to verify that that is what you're approving.
Thank you very
I'll make
kindly.
that motion.
I have a mover with Kevin, I have a seconder with Paul. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.3.4, you're up again.
So the Wingham Lions Club has put in a request to celebrate Lions Santa Claus Parade. Sorry, I have to say a little hooray because it finally feels like we're getting back to normal. In the report, it does include a road closure, which includes a route for the parade going down Main Street. We have had, here. The health unit has verified through an email that traditional parades are okay this year, and there is some recommendations of not handing out items, again, following social distancing where applied, and wearing face masks and all of those protocols to be as safe as possible. So the route is as long as it can go safely on the Wingham Main Street, Josephine Street, and that's what we are recommending.
Thank you very kindly. Do I have a mover?
I will move. I just want to make sure the recommendation is correct, though.
Okay.
So that is a county road. So the approval, we have to recommend to county council that the road be closed. We cannot close that road.
That is correct.
So I just want to make sure that
Goes on.
the process still goes on, but I just want to make sure the recommendation, I'm moving it, but I just want to make sure it's clear.
Paul seconding. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, the three, I'd like to see, and we have another request for a Santa Claus parade coming up for Blythe as well, but in years past, we as a council, as you alluded to, were able to pass out free skating passes, or it was a swim pass or something. That's not being able to be done this year. I would like to make a motion that, for council's consideration, that we not having to be able to pass them out, but have a free skate day, maybe at both arenas or something in lieu of us being able to pass out those and still be able to provide that for our citizens, because I thought that was a great idea.
Good point. I'm just wondering if we can just pass this as a motion, and then you can put that forward as a motion?
Can I just make one comment?
You sure can.
So the Township of North Huron Council actually sponsors public Sunday skates. They haven't started per se. My recommendation would be actually to sponsor a swim.
Oh, swim instead, okay. Okay. Well, you can make that motion in a minute. We have a motion on the floor. Any other concerns about the motion that's on the floor? Not seeing any, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Kevin, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm just not sure how it would work out with the next Blythe Santa Claus parade, where we just have a free swim in Wingham.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Why not have a free swim in Blythe? Not the
No,
ice?
free swim from kids in Blythe in Wingham,
Everybody.
for everybody.
Make it a free skate.
Skate is already there.
In the past, we've only actually given out swim passes.
It was swim pass? Okay, it was only swim passes? Okay.
Because every Sunday was a sponsored skate in both arenas. So parent and taught skating happens multiple times a week, and public skating happens in both arenas. The township has been so supportive of that over the years, and we try to promote that, and it has been very well used. The pool is a different thing. So we could do it that we promote, saying these are the free skates sponsored by the Township of North Huron, if people are not aware. And this is also the one day during Christmas holidays where the township is promoting a North Huron. And it would be for, I don't think we could regulate that it would just be North Huron people. It would be for anybody that wanted to attend.
Only because it was for the Santa Claus parades, and I wasn't aware of the financial supporting that this council does for the free skates on Sunday in both arenas. I won't be making a motion for this.
Thank you very kindly. You've withdrawn, and we shall move on.
Viv Bailey.
Yes.
May I make the motion then
Most
for a
certainly,
free
Chair.
swim for everybody in the Christmas break?
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Kevin seconds. Any more
No, I just
discussion?
didn't want through the, didn't want it to do with the Santa Claus parade, so, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Go ahead.
So I'll go ahead and pick an appropriate date with the
Yes.
aquatic supervisor and let council be aware of that date. So
Yes.
if they want to attend and come for a swim, you're more than welcome.
Yes. Okay. I see no more comments. Can we call the motion? All in favor?
Do you want me to
Well,
read it back? Just to
This
clarify?
guy's going to read it back for clarification.
So the motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves a North Huron Free Swim Day in lieu of being unable to pass out free swim passes at the Christmas parades.
We have a mover and seconder. You agree? All in favor? Carries. Okay, we're going to go to 7.3.5, I believe, and this is the Blythe Community Betterment Committee request to hold the Blythe Santa Claus Parade. You're up again.
So the Blythe Community Betterment Committee has requested to hold Blythe Santa Claus Parade on December 11th. It will also be a day parade, same as the Wingham. The road closure is being requested to close down Queen Street. So they will start at the Blythe and District Community Center Arena parking lot and then follow through the road closure. I'm just presenting this for your approval.
Okie dokie. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving, Paul seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Trevor.
Just to, again, reiterate that it's, Queen Street is a county highway, it's got to go to county, so I don't think there's any concerns, I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Didn't ask for moving.
You have mover and seconder?
Yes, so all in favor, please? Carries, thank you. Just want to throw something out while we're on this. We can't give candies out this year. I wonder if all of councilors would be interested in, if we could find a place that actually has funny stuff we could wear, be a bear, a bunny, et cetera, if we'd all be interested in doing that. Just for thought, we'll get back on that later. I don't know where to get something like that, but anyway. Thank you very kindly.
I don't mind helping organize that piece.
You just got volunteered. Thank you. Thank you very kindly for that, too. Okay, 7.3.6, Blythe Community Betterment Committee request to hold Blythe Rutabaker Festival Homecoming 2022. Take it away.
So the Blythe Community Betterment Committee has a subcommittee to host the Rutabaga Homecoming 2022. They put in a request to start the planning. What this report details is to set the date as Father's Day weekend. It would be the Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday. They aren't sure if they're going to be able to fill all 3 days with activities, but they are requesting those dates.
Do I have a mover? I have Chris moving, I have Rick seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Anita.
Is there anything else going on in the community then, or not? Is there a reason they have to do these dates now already?
Do you have an answer for that, Kevin? Kevin has an answer for that.
Oh, thanks.
During the through in past, during the Father's Day weekend was usually the fishing,
right.
kids free fishing out at the pond that's now privately owned, that's no longer. So it's been a date that something in town has always happened on that weekend for the families, and I think that's why they're choosing that date.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Go ahead, Trevor.
I just want to make, absolutely, I'm not, my comment is not in any way to not support any community event. I hope to bring them all. What my question is that would something of this nature normally, without COVID and overly COVID restrictions, would this normally come to council requesting these dates? Arguably, any community event can hold anything. Most of the time, they only come for council consideration if they're looking for something as it relates to a road closure, as some funds, something. So are we getting down this where we as council are needing to see these because of the COVID restrictions? Is that kind of I'm just not sure from a standpoint of this, because obviously we could have, as COVID as COVID goes away or eases in January and March, as we're hoping, as the Premier has indicated, that I wouldn't want 700 of these things coming to the council table asking for support, because I mean, as council, I support every event that would come here, no matter whether it's asked of me or not, because I think anybody who wants to support something in the community is well on. So just a clarity for me, really, honestly.
Thank you.
So the only reason that this group, and I would encourage them to request the dates, was to make council aware that these road closures, if they were having a parade or serving of alcohol, will definitely be part of this. So those are actually reports that would need to come in next spring. So it was really for awareness, so they can start promoting, selling camping for Christmas gifts or concert tickets and things like that. So they wanted to have North Huron Council on board. To second your question, just before COVID, Vicki and I have been diligently working on the special event binder, which outlays everything that is going on, so less of these would be coming to council for approval. It would really be an activity report to make you aware. That hasn't come forward yet, but that would eliminate a lot of these.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, when Director McCarthy gets up here, she's going to talk to 7.4.1, the Crookshank Park donation. It's actually quite self-explanatory. Can I get a mover? I have Paul moving. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second that.
Kevin seconds. Thank you.
Good evening, Ruth Bailey and Council. Before you is a report. I feel it's pretty short, to the point. So there was a donation that will be provided to the Crookshank Park, and it will be overseen by the township. And it makes sense as the Crookshank Park is owned by the township, and it would be working with the family that's donating the money, the Crookshanks, Ellen Smith, and the Wingham Horticultural Society to work on projects that they wish to move forward with. So if you guys have any questions, I'm right here for provide the answers.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Kevin.
Which option does staff recommend?
3 is the one.
Option 3, okay. Sorry,
I believe I have movers. I just want to say how generous it is of the Crookshanks family to come forward and do something like this. I do not believe, is it Mary Ann, Paul, help me out here? Yeah, yeah, go ahead and just, it's
Ellen.
Ellen, yeah, thank you very, you may want to talk to it because you were up there too. I think it's just great that she's come forward and to do this. It isn't her namesake, but again, they're not from town. Did you want to say anything to it, Paul?
Well, they're just honoring the Bud Crookshank.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Not seeing any, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Okay, the next one is the former municipal airport purchase and sale agreement. Okay, Kiddo Runner.
Thank you, Reed Bailey, and members of council. So my report is going over the purchase and sale agreement with Papal Aviation. You have gotten the agreement and updates regarding that in previous meetings. They have signed the paperwork, and this report goes over moving forward with not only signing the purchase and sale agreement with the Papals, but also proceeding with deeming the rest of the agricultural land and the woodlots surplus property. It would also, staff also requires direction to proceed with the disposal method for the sale of the agricultural lands and the woodlot, as well as direction to terminate the rental agreement with Warwick, the tenant who currently farms the airport agricultural lands.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Go ahead, Anita.
Jenny, may I ask you why this is all in one agreement, one bylaw? I thought the airport sale should be separate from the agricultural part. Is there a reason for that, or?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Van Hersum, the reason I did it all in one was to be able to get as much direction from council to move forward with as many points without bringing back 3 separate reports for you to have to go through.
Oh, okay.
And if I may, through your worship, to answer Councillor Van Hersum's question, the bylaw is only to adopt the purchase and sale agreement. The rest of Director McCarthy's report is to initiate the surplus sale and disposition of land policy process for the ag lands, right? So by supporting the recommended motion, council will be giving direction to proceed with executing the purchase and sale agreement for the airport proper with Tyler and Summer Papel, but then also directing staff to start that process to declare where the property is declared surplus. We provide notice in the paper. We receive expressions of interest for the property using that direct advertising method as noted in the report. So basically, the ag lands, we're just starting that process at this point. Nothing is coming forward for bylaw. The only piece by bylaw is that purchase and sale agreement for the airport proper.
Okay.
Christopher?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Actually, we cannot, from a technical standpoint, we can't move forward with the farmland because notice of termination was not given to Mr. Warwick before August 1st. So he, in any event, has the use of the land for next year, at least. And that's when we would initiate, like we can do the surplus thing, that's fine, but we can't go ahead and try and sell it. That can't happen. That would happen next year.
So the closing date, right? So basically the notice we would be giving is for notice for next year, right? So we wouldn't be we wouldn't be selling it this year. It's quite a lengthy process. We'd be initiating it this year, giving notice by the August date for next year, and basically we would determine a closing date that aligns. I don't know if the director has more to add on that, but the process doesn't have to start next year, and quite frankly, from a staff's perspective, these are generally long processes, so we want to start them as to give us as much time as possible for these things to play out, right?
Right, and we have to follow the agreement that we have with him. But there's no sense in trying to get, like, would you want to get bids for the land now?
I think that would come back before council for another day, I would presume.
Well, not even this year, because land prices change.
Nope.
You wouldn't dare do that till next year.
That's right. Go ahead.
Like mid next year, at least.
Go ahead, Vicki. Jamie. Sorry, Jamie. Oops.
Can you really hear that when the mics are all like here? Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Palmer. I wouldn't be starting the process of selling the agricultural lands until probably the new year. It did take about 6 months to go from beginning to end with just the airport proper. I can't see it going by very quickly. But if possible, if we found a purchaser that's willing to accommodate the agreement and work with the tenant until he's off the lands in December, there's no reason why we can't look at that as something that we could move forward with.
Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. When a farmer purchases something, he's not going to wait. You wouldn't dare do it before spring, because then that new purchaser would expect to plant crops. And yes, there's an agreement, and that would be an impediment to the purchase. It's better to, like if there's wheat growing now, it'll come off in August. But you've got to, I would start that process. It will sell fairly fast. Everything is selling fast these days, as far as farmland goes. So I would wait till after all the crops are in. Then there's no temptation for a new purchaser to think that, oh, now I bought it, so I can plant. You know, we do not want to face that, because we have an agreement. So that's why I'm saying wait till summertime, and then you've got the rest of the year to find a potential buyer.
Go ahead, Director McCarthy, and then over to Trevor.
Through Reed Bailey to Councillor Palmer. In our agreement, it also states what we can ask the tenant to actually plant. So there's quite a few clauses in the agreement that we're able to both exercise in order for some kind of agreeable solution to either sell the land or hold it until December.
So I think we're kind of getting down into the weeds here. I think the Director McCarthy is quite able to do her job, and I think everything will be taken care of properly and come back before council.
This is
I understand your
different.
concerns. I understand your
Different.
concerns. I'm just saying that we're getting down into the weeds. We do want to sell the land. We have no use to keep the land, and she's clearly said that it will not happen overnight, and everything will be taken care of, just like it was with the airport, and all the people that were worried that their hangars were gonna, I forget what was gonna happen to them, but I think we should just leave it up to our staff to come back with a report and then discuss it then. But say more if you like.
This is not selling a house. It's different. If I bought that farm, I want to plant, because I've got money invested, and I want a crop that I can sell and recover some money, some income. If I was the purchaser, if I bought it in the spring.
Point of order here. Sorry, point of order.
Thank you.
For what?
I don't think it's our position as council to tell staff how to do their jobs.
Yeah.
I am.
Gentlemen,
Are you a farmer?
Gentlemen. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Palmer, no, I'm not a farmer, but I do have the best interest of our taxpayers, and what will come through in my report and my future recommendations, it's what's best for them.
We have an agreement.
Yes, and I will do my best to make sure that is.
If we break an agreement, we might as well just kiss our future agreements away. Remember that?
Okay, I think I've had enough. I think we've all had enough. Okay, over to Deputy Reeves' site.
What we are doing here tonight is declaring it surplus. That is it.
That's fine.
The conversation is, we will determine closing dates with respect to when we want to close it, how it's appropriate to the farmers, to the renters, whatever the case may be. All of that will take into consideration when an option of selling the particular land is taken into consideration. Right today, we're not doing that. All we're doing is saying, start the process. Because it takes a long time to do advertising and a whole bunch of other things to make sure we're selling a property that, one, is surveyed and owned, and what all we have. At the end of the day, we are going to ensure that, and as staff has indicated, the intention of their recommendation is for in the best interest of our taxpayer. That's who we're supposed to be doing. I agree. Do I want to have any issue with a potential leaser or who's renting the farm? No, I don't. I want to make sure everybody's accountable about what this looks like. At the end of the day, that's what we're hoping here to do. And I mean, I took Mr. Warwick's comments as when he mentioned it. He wants to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. So do we. Again, I think we all resonate to the fact that that land is in Morris Turnberry. It's not in North Huron. So we're coming to the fruition is when the recommendation, or when we talked about this in the past, is that that land is not necessarily good for our use because we can't really develop it. Because if we do develop it, all the taxes are going to go to Morris Turnberry. So we're saying, here, you want to buy it? Have at it. but there's processes in place that we have to do, and that's what they are asking for today. My question is, and just to follow up to the question is, I'm wondering if the comment about the motion is more, to be more clear, is when it talks about, and further that council authorize staff to exercise the termination provision in the rental agreement with the Warwick tenant for the use. I'm wondering if we need to be more clear as to the fact that that needs to be discussed about as in August 2022. I mean, we're not terminating it now, because we're not terminating it now. We're terminating it when the clause comes available to us in the year. So basically, what I'm hearing, that will make that motion clearer, and it gives Mr. Warwick an opportunity now that he knows that something's happening. Does he know that we're going to sell the property? No. We have no idea if we're going to sell that property. All we're doing is saying it's up for surplus and we're going through the process. We still got to get bids, and they're going to still come to this table to talk about.
Based on the comments I just heard, I believe the clerk is going to read us a revised edition.
You want me to read this whole one, don't you?
Please, and then we'll have it done.
So, the motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated November 1st, 2021, regarding a purchase and sale agreement for the former municipal airport property, and further that council gives first and second reading to bylaw number 87, 2021, being a bylaw authorizing the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement of purchase and sale between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Summer and Tyler Papel for 77 acres of the airport property. And further, the council directs staff to put bylaw number 87, 2021 on the November 15th, 2021 regular meeting agenda for third reading. And further, that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby declares the severed agricultural lands and woodlot area, approximately 371 acre area of the municipally owned property, as surplus to the needs of the municipality. And further, that council authorizes staff to proceed with the disposal of the 371 acre area of airport property through the direct advertising method. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a report for a future meeting detailing all offers and expressions of interest for council's consideration. And further, that council authorizes staff to exercise the termination provision in the rental agreement with Warwick tenant for the use of the Wingham Airport agricultural lands in advance of the August 2022 notice date. And further, that council authorizes the Director of Finance, Treasurer, to put the proceeds received from Summer and Tyler Papel for the purchase of the airport property into reserves.
Chris?
You didn't change anything.
Yes, he did. He put in.
So in the second last provision there, the words have been added that it now reads in advance of the August 2022
Okay.
notice date.
Okay.
So you have a mover of Deputy Reeve Sipe and you're looking for a seconder.
Okay, do I have a seconder? I have Kevin Faulkner seconding. Last chance for comments, questions, concerns. Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Okay, thank you very kindly. Okay, Fire Department, we have no reports. Building Department, no reports. CAO, no reports. Correspondence, we don't have any. Council reports, the Reeves activities. I'm going to touch on two things tonight. I want to touch on the last few days, staff and councilors have been very busy. In the world we live in now, the social media and the real media, we have both. It's amazing to me the reaction to the situation where lies were spread about North Huron on social media. People with no news gathering education or background, simply hiding in a basement and spitting out whatever pops into their head so others can read it like gospel. We have several long-term media outlets available with trained, educated people who have dedicated themselves to the best of journalism, and you know why? They're your neighbor, they're your friend, they're us. Give a thought before you take a blog to heart. Who would write such a thing for the net to read? I also want to talk about tonight, we took another few steps towards, and this is in our final year now. We're entering our final year, and every year I give you guys an update of what I think were the best things. We're entering our final year now. So I just want to say tonight that With the decision on the airport sale, which is only in its second reading, with the decision on the airport sale that lets the airport remain an airport, and the adjoining land being put up for sale that are owned by North Huron but actually in Morris Turnberry, this council is putting itself in a position to acquire lands inside North Huron for future growth on commercial, industrial, and residential that would pay taxes to North Huron, not another municipality. We have plenty of water and sewer services in Blythe and Wingham and land in East Wawanosh for development. The way to bring taxes down in line is to have more paying into the tax basis. It's just that easy. The work we are doing with Hutton Heights in East Wawanosh and serviced by the Wingham Water and Sewer is one example. The trailer park in Wingham is another example. 6 seasonal trailers turning into 74 apartments. Bet you the downtown merchants are loving that one. In Blythe, just walk around. There are so many new buildings, just walk around, you'll see them. Know that we're not done. This council is just beginning as we go into our final year, and we'll leave the next council with lots of opportunities. Let's have fun in this last year. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to council members' reports, verbal written updates from members who sit on boards. Kevin?
Thank you, Reeve. I'm just looking for direction and some kind of way forward. I sit on the Blythe BAA board, and we've had now 3 meetings that have not met quorum. I do believe that comes into a procedural realm after the 3 months. I'm just curious as to of just alerting staff that that something might need to be addressed. I'm not sure which way to do it.
We will take that as a direction. It's something we're also aware of as well. Myself and the CAO are working to schedule a meeting with the chair of the BIA to discuss. As we reported previously, we were working on a processes and procedures meeting for the BIA. However, the fact that they have struggled with quorum has made that piece difficult. So at this point, staff are aware and staff are working through that in hopes of helping the Blythe BA get up and running to its full potential again.
Thank you.
Might add to that a bit too. We may want to just do the good old-fashioned door-to-door salesperson and knock on the doors on the main street of Blythe and just have a chat. And I don't mind volunteering for that when the time is right, to get some of the store owners to see why they're not coming out and see if we can get them to come out. And I definitely would volunteer to help you with that. Anita?
Yes, I'm not sure if this is for the comments or reports, but I attended the Huron County Federation of Agricultural AGM on October 22nd. And first of all, I would like to congratulate Ian Ralph and Lauren Scott from Scott Lee Farms. They were being awarded the Huron County Outstanding Contribution to Agriculture Award. It's a great honor to receive this award for all their accomplishments toward the agricultural community. The Huron County Federation of Agriculture is working towards the ongoing Ontario Farm Revive project, building the bridge between urban and rural. Right now they are handing out slow-moving vehicle signs at participating grain elevators, and hopefully this helps making traffic a little bit safer. I also would like to ask staff, and I don't know if I have to put a motion in for this, or since we are abandoning the non-residence fees and we're still having users from all the communities around us using our arenas, I would like to have staff look into a letter for support, for some monetary support from our neighboring municipalities towards our arenas.
We just make that information.
So right now, because you're in the council member report section, so what I would recommend is when we get to other business, you put that forward as a motion.
Okay.
For council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Go ahead, Rick.
Are we on reports or comments?
We're still on reports.
Okay, nope, not right now.
Anyone else with a report? Okay, Rick, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Reeve Bailey. I'd like to send a thank you out to Jamie McCarthy and Stu Moffett in regards to the help I received in getting the banners up on the main street of Blythe, the veterans banners. Last year, we had 22 banners. This year, that number's grown to 29, and we've got 3 poles that got double banners on them, and I think the numbers are still going to be climbing on that particular subject. But anyway, I'd like to send out a thank you. It's my comments.
Thank you very much, Rick. Anyone else? Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I can say ditto to that for the town here in Wingham on the main street. It's very much appreciated seeing the veterans up, and people are proud of that. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie and the cohorts that did that.
Okay, anyone else? Not seeing anyone. We're going to move on to notice of motion. We have none. And then into bylaws. Bylaw 85-2021, the transfer payment agreement mutual modernization program intake, digital modernization project. Do I have a mover? I have Rick moving, I have Chris seconding. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 86.
So if I may, I'd recommend that you allow the CEO to provide a little update for the benefit of the public on this one.
On this one here, okay. Bylaw number 86-2021, appointment of a director of finance, treasurer. Would you like to speak to this? Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So, as council is aware and the public, Donna has announced her retirement for December 31st of this year. So we have undertaken a process to recruit a new director of finance, and I'm pleased to announce that Darcy Chapman has been offered and accepted the position of director of finance. Darcy will be joining us on November 15th of this month to work with Donna and begin the transition process. Darcy is joining us from the municipality of Meaford as a treasurer director of corporate services. He's also held the positions of capital accountant with the town of Blue Mountains, treasurer with the municipality of McGall, deputy clerk treasurer with the township of Signac, and economic development officer with the township of Central Manitoulin. So certainly joining us with a financial background, but certainly more skills than the finance, which will be much appreciated. Darcy is excited, and he is looking forward to joining our team in the very near future. So, congratulations to Darcy.
Yes, and he seems to be a great lad. Thank you very much. So, again, bylaw number 86-2021, appointment of director of finance, treasurer. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Rick seconding. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 87-2021, purchase and sale agreement of the Richard Levan Airport, first and second reading only. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I have Kevin seconding. All in favor? Carries. Announcement. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, November 15th, 2020, and recovery committee meeting will be held on Thursday, November 18th, 2021 at 2 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater. The next Wingham BIA meeting will be held on Thursday, November 18th, 2021 at 6:30 at the Hot Stone Lounge in North Huron West Cass Community Complex. The next Blythe BIA meeting will be held on Thursday, November 25th, 2021 at 8 a.m. at the Blythe and District Community. Other business? Seeing none?
Yeah, may I please move that request for lighting?
Yes.
Not yet. So if you want to put your motion on the floor now.
I would like to bring a motion forward to ask our neighboring municipalities for support towards the use of their residents in our recreational facilities.
I have a mover with Anita. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Yes, Trevor seconds. Personally, I think it's a great idea. Anybody else like to speak to it? Go ahead, Chris.
I wonder if this is a time to add, for MT, they request, the only way that they give any funding out is through a grant. So if we were to ask them for help to run, from the deficit of our rec centers, it makes more sense to do it the way they would like to do it, by a grant. As far as the other surrounding, ECW and in Bruce here, maybe just a request, because we don't know how they manage requests, unless you can find that out.
So if, what I would say, I guess operationally, if council passes this motion, directing staff to reach out to neighboring municipalities for financial support for their residents' use of North Huron's rec facilities, right? If they have specified a specific process they would like to see, operationally, we will channel that request through their proper procedures, just like we would for ours.
Okay,
So.
that satisfies it. Good, Trevor?
I guess my question, Reeve, is I mean, I'm happy to, for the motion. I mean, are we leaving it up to staff to, or like for the recommendation to what the, because I'm assuming if we send a letter, the response is going to be, well, what do you want? What's the value? So I'm just wondering, are we anticipating that staff are going to put that number in there, or are we as council going to determine what we're putting in or what we're basing that number on? I guess I'm looking at Anita as she's put the motion up,
Yeah.
just for clarity from a staff perspective, because we're actually giving direction to staff.
Right.
As much as we can get.
I think it is important that we send the letter out right now, so maybe it's better to have an amount in there, and then, because if we have staff look into the usage by other residents, it might take too long. I don't know.
Kevin?
Through your, just, is that amount going to include arrears?
No.
Good point.
So that would negate negotiating for the arrears.
So that brings up two things, actually. That brings up, number one, the amount is how are we going to decide that? And number two, the question I heard very clearly was, do other municipalities have to do that? Everybody has a deal with everybody. I mean, are we the only ones that are asking it through one form or another? I kind of think I would stick with just a letter that just says, would you be interested in donating for right now, and then see what comes back, and pretty well tell you what's coming back. But it's up to you guys. That's just I know what's coming back, but. Yep.
Yeah, Reeve, thank you. We know how one municipality wants it done. Central Huron, we don't know how they would, or ACW. I think it'd be nice to get a figure. And arrears, I think that would just put the hairs up on someone's back if we said, oh, and by the way, you should owe this too for arrears. I think that has gone, and now we look forward to a new way. We have to. You got to look forward, not, oh, we're going to pick up the back as well. No, we can't do that.
Different business than the way I ever ran business. Go ahead.
My suggestion, I'm looking at this as a not specific to any one municipality. So I think that's the conversation that we're talking about, is we're asking all of our neighboring municipalities that utilize our service, here's what we're offering. So my question is that if we know of, if we have a dictated surplus, dictated deficit in our arenas, that obviously in my mind is the baseline. We know we're never going to get the whole number, but my question is that if we know somewhat of a percentage of the utilization of those services, we take the deficit and say, we know what we've been getting. So let's just say, in my mind, I'm recommending we send out the request for all the municipalities around us, $75,000, and see where we go. And if they say no, then we know. If they say yes, great. At the end of the day, we now set a number. If they want justification on how that number came about, I'm going to say right now, I just did this. But at the end of the day, we've put a number to a piece of paper, and the question is, I'm saying, if we put that number to a piece of paper and they want to come back and they want us to justify it, now we can talk about, here's our surplus and here's the utilization of our product. That's what we can talk about from the utilization perspective. So that's my suggestion. I'm looking at Anita, I don't want to step all over her, her motion, so that's my recommendation to kind of move this forward.
Yes, but 75,000 is a lot to ask from another municipality.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, at least they can go down then, I say.
So we can send out the letters to the neighboring municipalities, basically, just requesting financial support, as almost like a starting point, right? And that, basically we can seek council direction based on whatever process each municipality wants to use, just because right now it's a starting point and it's not clear what that's going to look like for each municipality, right? For some municipalities, for example, they don't have as high of non-resident usage compared to others, right? So a 75,000 across the board might logistically not make sense, right? Certainly we as SMT can put our heads together to see if we have a good process based on our operational considerations, and we can certainly bring that forward to council if it makes sense.
So the mover's saying that's okay, seconder's fine with it?
Fine by me.
So you have Councillor Heffer with his hand up.
Mr. Heffer?
Yes, I was wondering, through you, Reeve, would it be wise to, like, we'd be considering Goderich in there when we saw what their use of the live arena was?
I think we have those
Just a
stats.
thought.
Yep,
I
yep.
just.
No, we have the stats, we should reach out to everybody.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
So I'll read the motion back, so we're okay. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to ask North Huron's neighboring municipalities for financial support for their residents' use of North Huron's recreational facilities. So your movers, Councillor Van Hittersum, and your seconders, Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Okay.
So if they're okay with that motion, then
You okay? Okay, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone? Okay. Closed session, there is no other business. Closed here, yes, we just talked about it. Closed session reporting out the Council of Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at
8:23 p.m.
8:23 p.m. into an in-camera session closed to the public to discuss the following: labor relations or employee negotiations, overtime and bank time in lieu policy. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I have Paul seconding. All in favor? Carries.